You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Simpson, as Chris said, VP of Product at SCYTHE. For those of you who may have joined a little later in the day, SCYTHE is an automated adversary emulation platform. Our philosophy is attack, detect, defend. Sorry, attack, detect, respond. We allow users to generate realistic payloads at scale, to get insights into people, process, and technology across defensive phases of protection, detection, and response. A little bit about me. I've been in software for about 25 years and cybersecurity for a little over 5 years. In my personal life, I'm a mom of 2 grown children. And when I'm not working, I'm a digital nomad. I travel back and forth between New Hampshire and Texas and try to see people along the way. I'm in New Hampshire right now. And let's see, I like hiking, yoga, and karaoke if I have time. Today, I'm going to talk about how we can actually leverage best practices from the software testing industry so that we can automate and improve collaboration in cybersecurity testing. So the most powerful thing that happened to the software industry was automated testing. HP says that automated testing can reduce the cost of each test hour from $78 to $17.54. Earlier in my career, I was actually consulting for a client, GE, and I managed about 50 plus people or so. And we were their extended design and development team. We owned everything from website to application development. We hosted their servers, really did everything for their technology. And back then, it was not uncommon for a customer to pay $10 million a year for a team of our skills. And out of the 50-person team, about half of them were testers. So approximately $5 million a year, GE was paying us to do quality assurance or QA test everything from content to performance. I don't know a software company out there that doesn't invest in QA or know the importance of QA. Even though QA has become a necessity versus an afterthought, CISQ said that the cost of poor quality software was approximately 2.84 trillion in 2020. So we're still working on it in the software industry. To put things into perspective, the cost of fixing a bug earlier in development can be as little as $100 versus letting it into production, it can cost upwards of $10,000. And that's if you include like attrition, customer attrition, brand reputation, and support costs. Let's talk about how this relates to cybersecurity. So as an industry, we are still very reactive. I'm sure most of you agree. We are just starting to be proactive and find bugs or holes before the adversaries find them. And the number of security breaches in the last 5 years increased by 67%. Also, the average cost of cybercrime in the last 5 years increased by 72% in the same time frame. There are approximately 560,000 new pieces of malware every day and a total of 1 billion malware programs out there. We cannot keep up. If it will be a breach, it's when there will be a breach. So strong proactive testing is critical to finding the bugs or holes before adversaries attack. Similar to software QA testing, it costs a lot to fix a vulnerability after breach versus before breach. We don't want, obviously people know here about how much it costs to be attacked by ransomware. But if we can try to get it beforehand, it's a lot cheaper, similar to QA. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of software testing. So this was really interesting. I was trying to do some little bit of research before I did this presentation. And I don't know if y'all know, but Edison coined the term bug for a flaw in the system in 1870. It was about a flaw in his lighting invention work. And then the first software team or test team was for our government on Project Mercury, which was the first human spaceflight in history. And that was in 1958. So we started testing software all the way back since 1958. In the waterfall method, which was used a lot when we were doing a lot of manual testing, was in 1970. This was a way to do project management with well-defined linear methods and checkpoints from idea all the way to launch. And in around the 80s, we started actually having QA software companies. Rational and Mercury were the biggest ones that were out there, and it really helped test the software. Obviously, things changed when in the 1990 World Wide Web came out, and the original manual testing waterfall methodology was way too slow. So we needed a way to speed things up. And also, the manual waterfall testing was really expensive. It cost a lot of money. I talked before about the $10 million that a year that GE was paying us. It was very tedious. So when the World Wide Web did launch, we had to get to market a lot faster. And for instance, with GE, at no time, there was no digital product management for dummies book or anything like that. So I had to actually look at software books that were for traditional software and try to figure out how to apply those methods to a faster turnaround time. And then the biggest problem that we had was that we needed to automate faster. It was way too expensive for our customers, and we needed to get to market much faster. So we also didn't have any automated or collaboration tools back then. I had my QA team I had half of the team, right? The $5 million team. We were all together. QA was not part of the engineering team. So anyone who was not part of the engineering team would pound on the sites. We had an assembly line. We had stored bugs in spreadsheets and Word docs. Every design had to be detailed down to exactly what the functionality was. And we had pages and pages and pages of requirements and detailed designs. And we communicated through AOL chat, email, spreadsheets, Word documents, and things were stored all over the place, but sometimes on a file server. So QA was not thought of back then as a good thing by development. There was a lot of animosity between the QA team and development team. And obviously, because the developers thought that it would actually elongate their release cycle. And there was no real thought of, oh, this is actually for the best of our customers or for protecting the company itself. And again, we did not have automated or collaboration tools back then. Fortunately, in 1993 or so, I'm starting to date myself now, Scrum for software was created. That was where we could actually collaborate together. We worked better together. We delivered faster and more nimbly. And Right now, it's primarily used in software, but it can actually be used everywhere, and was in fact got its name from a rugby team. In 1995, Mercury, one of the companies that started in 1980, actually released two major products. One was Windrunner and another was LoadRunner. Windrunner was an automated functional GUI testing tool, and it allowed us to record and play back the user interface and use them as test scripts. LoadRunner actually allowed us to simulate thousands of users concurrently to test the performance of applications. When Mercury came out with both Windrunner and LoadRunner, it actually changed our lives. We could write scripts, we could run them over and over and check for defects and performance issues. We were able to reduce the size of our team, which our customer was very happy about, reduce the costs of building, and also get to market quicker. While we were really excited about all of the new test automation tools, they were still kind of bulky, and we were still experimenting with different development approaches. And this was in the 1990s. So fast forward to 2002 and in around 2004 as well, Jira and Confluence were released. And that was a game changer because we were able to track issues, bugs, requirements, progress, enable collaboration and transparency in teams. And finally, we did not have to use spreadsheets anymore or Word docs. Well, I'm sure we still did, but as a primary form of communication. There was a central location for all of our team information, and we had more robust automation tools and agile approaches to speed up our release cycles. For the next decade or so, we started being able to concentrate on scaling up and improving our operations, reducing our time to market, increasing productivity, and reducing costs. And in about 2010 or so, CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous delivery, was introduced. It's a method to frequently deliver apps to customers, and it actually introduces automation into app development at all stages. Another really important thing that happened at that time is that quality assurance was actually moved into the Scrum development team. Prior to that, we would have development sprints. So we were doing Scrum, but then after the sprint, that's when we would do QA. And it was, again, the team was not together, right? So that caused some of that animosity. And once we moved the QA into the team or into the development team, that communication between QA and engineering became a ton better. It was not us versus them. It was a team effort. And also QA started to happen every single day. And that's when companies realized the benefit, because they really started to see that we could catch bugs beforehand and not after. So fast forward to now, I'm just making sure this is on the screen. Okay, fast forward to now, and we are experiencing a huge change in software testing. We're working on autonomous testing or scriptless, no code testing. Writing scripts is time consuming. We're looking to minimize that by using AI, artificial intelligence, and ML, machine learning, to process the data, identify schemes and patterns to test without human support. And it's really the age of smart testing. So let's layer on some key cybersecurity milestones onto this evolution timeline. All right, so in the 70s, I'm sure most of you know that the first virus was the Creeper and the first antivirus was the Reaper. And that was in the early 70s. In the 80s, the computer virus and Trojan horse. The terms were actually developed at that time. And then you flash forward, and it took all that time, right? So many years of defending and reacting, and 4,500 plus cybersecurity tools later, and MITRE ATT&CK framework was created. And probably most of you know on this call, but that's the knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques based on real world observations. So instead of being on the defense, we started to be on the offense. Red teams, similar to the QA teams, started to poke holes into the defensive companies to find holes. And we did that before the adversaries got there. Breach attack simulation, what became a Gartner category right around the same time. And in terms of automation of manual red teaming, that's where they put us. So if we look at this, cybersecurity testing is really in its infancy compared to software testing. If I had to guess, we're probably around there, right? In terms of the whole gamut. Our automation tools are getting better, and we're still experimenting with different development approaches. However, it took us 30 years in software testing to get all the way to where we are now, and we can't wait that long in cybersecurity. So in order to get there faster, we really should start to leverage best practices from software testing. So let's talk a little bit about these best practices. So people. Being able to seamlessly automate the workflow between red and blue teams, that's a huge goal. Being able to dedicate adversary emulation teams to be standard in all companies or outsourced, but every company having them. And then have clear plans defined and automated scripts updated regularly or daily. If we want to apply practices from software around process, we should be utilizing the established software QA workflow in the world of cybersecurity testing. We should adopt universal adversary emulation CTI standards and practices. Right now, it's really hard. Everyone's got their own way of creating threats. And without that, we can't share. And we should make continuous daily adversary emulation in purple teams a standard protocol in all companies. We should run automated adversary emulation in a loop on all systems on a daily basis. We should leverage Agile and Scrum to fix the people, processes, and technology challenges very quickly, like we've been doing it in the software industry. And we should also start to measure. We are measuring, but we should start to really look at efficiencies and ratios. So how well we're doing compared to if it had happened before the breach or versus if it's happening after the breach. And then being transparent. I think that's another one of, we're talking about collaboration, but also transparency seems to come up a lot too. And really celebrate the vulnerabilities that were detected before the breach and make it much, the red and blue teams working together in a purple team so that they're all, there's not a bad thing that you found things beforehand. So from best practices from software in terms of product or technology, using, SCYTHE or other automated adversary emulation software to reduce detection and resolution times for vulnerabilities. Also integrating and using strong cross-functional productivity software like Jira or ServiceNow, and there's others out there as well. And creating tight integrations between all cybersecurity tools so that we have all that information at our hands. So in closing, if we leverage best practices from software testing, we can bring cybersecurity testing to maturity quicker. Any questions?
Thank you, Stephanie. Let me take a peek. I didn't see any on Zoom. Let me take a look at Discord. Nothing right now. We have just a couple minutes. I've got a question for you. Without giving away any secret sauce, what would you say this year you're looking for your team to add in terms of priorities, you know, at a high level based on client feedback that you've had? I think that'll be a nice, you'll give everybody a nice feel for where you're headed and hopefully give them some, you know, glide slope to where they should be headed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I hinted to it a little bit. So being the collaboration between red and blue teams is really important. You know, I can't give away the secret sauce, but that's one of our focuses. Also showing customers value. A lot of the discussions today were around, you know, reporting and things like that. I think as an industry, we need to be able to show how important this is and why it needs to happen more regularly versus, you know, once a quarter or a few times a year. Then the last thing, sorry, is around the integrations, right? Really making sure that we have very tight partnerships. And so we are, you know, able to provide our customers what they want.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Your point on continuous, if there's one thing everybody should take away, well, from today and specifically, you know, what you've talked about is it's got to be continuous. Even once a quarter isn't enough, but it doesn't need to be heavyweight continuous. And I think that's where a lot of people get, you know, how should we say, nervous or amped up going, my God, I can't do it daily. I've got all these other tasks. I don't think we're saying that, right? Just make sure it's appropriate, but lightweight enough for you to handle both strategically and operationally, but it's got to be in the run book day to day. And
that's a really good point, because actually the one more thing that we're really concentrating hard on this year as well is ease of use.
Yep.
You know, obviously there's an employee shortage out there. We want it to be very easy for someone to be able to get into this. Obviously we still are, there's still the advanced users, but the advanced users need to be able to hand this off to users who aren't as advanced once they've created the campaigns.
I agree. That's a great point. I mean, of course, you're going to have laser focused people with deep skills. Those could come internally, right? If you can make the hire, or those can happen via partnerships, you know, in
absolutely
paying for that from a professional services perspective to get that started. But to your point, then making it operationally available to sort of that key level individual, because you cannot have all PhDs or data scientists or senior CISO level type folks, or, you know, operational people handle all that. So it's a great point. And I know you'll get that done with the team, and that'll make things much more useful for everybody.